Paul Cook, Saturday Breakfast on ABC Great Southern.
An animator from Walpole has started a comic strip that is capturing the hearts of the young and old alike on the South Coast. Nathan Viney is the creator of Walpole Kids, which runs every week in the Walpole Weekly and also in the Great Southern Weekend. And Nathan is originally from the UK, where he studied design and animation and worked for the BBC on a children's TV series. He moved to Walpole about a year ago, where he works at the Community Resource Centre. He joins me now. Good morning, Nathan. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Paul. Thank you.
So you moved from the UK to Walpole. I'm always curious to start with this. What inspired a move to the opposite, almost diagonally opposite corner of the globe?
Oh, well, with that, you'd have to ask my parents, because it was originally them bringing me over here, and then I went back and forth and studied, and then came back and ended up in Walpole. The reason I ended up in Walpole was actually because of last year's lockdown and all that. Long story, that one.
You got stuck there? I was travelling through when the fences came down, and look, here I am in Walpole.
Pretty much.
Okay. Are you allowed to leave Walpole?
Well, at the time, we were bouncing up. We were on our way to Tasmania,
yeah.
and you know, it was basically people were turning us around, and ended up down here.
Do you know that is not a rare story? I've heard that there were quite a few travellers, and they're still around, that were planning on travelling. They were travelling around the country at the time, and they kind of got stuck, and it's been quite difficult to move. Does that mean, are you going to stay in Walpole now? Have you learnt to love it?
Oh, yeah, we love it here, definitely. Beautiful.
So you've got a background in animation. I think we're going to run out of time. We'll go to news headlines, and I want to touch on that afterwards. But just give me a little bit of your background. So you worked, you did some design and animation, and you worked at the BBC on a children's TV series. Was that an animated TV show?
It was a mixture of live action and animation, so it was a real person interacting with a cartoon character, and I was part of the team of animators that were animating that character. They did 3 seasons of it. It was pretty fun to do that, and I got to go and work in some of the studios where they'd made Indiana Jones and the original Star Wars films, and
which was Pinewood Studios, right?
That Pinewood's where they're doing the latest ones. I know they did a bit, but it was Elstree Studios.
Oh, okay.
Sort of north of London, I think.
Yeah, right. So, and TV animation can be quite laborious. It takes a long, it takes a long time. There's a lot of work goes into, 5 seconds of vision. Yeah,
it's one of the reasons I haven't done that much animation recently. But yeah, it is a real commitment, and it takes a lot of time.
Hold the line, Nathan. We'll be back. We'll just take some news headlines, and then I want you to tell me about your comic strip. So let's go back to Nathan Viney. Thank you for staying with us, Nathan.
That's all right.
I said that presumptuously as I turned the phone up, hoping you were still there.
I'm still here, yes.
So the story is so far to pretend we're doing a reality TV show where we're recapping it. So you came to Australia as a child, you moved backwards and forwards, you did some studied design, some animation, you worked a little on a BBC TV series, you were travelling around Australia, you got stuck in Walpole, and then what happened?
That's my whole life in a bubble.
The abridged version.
Oh, well, like a lot of artists, I think, last year, during the lockdown, I was very inspired, and I just wanted to create. I've been creating stuff. I create stuff all the time, and I just was so inspired by this environment, the trees, the inlet here. It's beautiful. And yeah, I just wanted to create some characters that lived in this environment with me, that I could, and also I wanted to create a comic strip for a newspaper. I always have, and one thing I love is local towns creating their own newspapers. Everywhere I go, I always try and pick one up because I love to see what they're doing, and most importantly, if they have a comic strip. Not just because I want to submit it, but because I love to see what what
People
other
are doing.
people are doing.
Yeah. So what are some
Yep.
of your, sorry to jump in, Nathan, what are some of your favourite comic strips? Which ones light your fire?
Well, my inspirations since I was young have always been Peanuts with Charlie Brown. I have quite a collection of Charlie Brown books, which
Yeah.
like a Bible. Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah.
Also, the UK, I used to read the Beano a lot.
Yeah.
So all of those things you can kind of see in my drawing.
Comics,
Inspiration.
interesting you brought up Beano, because comic books from the UK, maybe not so much here in Australia, but certainly in the UK, Beano was massive. Certainly, I mean, I grew up there as a kid until I was 9. Beano was huge, and then in later years I moved on to things like Viz. But comics were always a very important part of the dialogue. Even back, there was an era where, I don't know whether you remember or how old you are, Nathan, I'll give my age away, but there was a thing called Commando and these little comic storybooks that were like war stories, but it was all done in comic form. They were incredibly popular. We don't see a lot of that kind of art anymore, do we?
No, they were really detailed, weren't they?
And they told very in-depth stories, and there's a lot that can be told in story with an image as opposed to words. Whereas,
that's right.
Now
there's a mixture of text and images.
Great. It feels now that graphic purpose of the frame has turned in. It's more memes now than it is, these very simplistic, monochrome images to express one thought. So you were inspired by Peanuts. What ideas come to you when you're looking to write a comic strip? Where does that process begin?
Well, to create it at the beginning, it really does come from all those inspirations. But once you've got it going, and you've got a comic every week, it's kind of lucky that I've based my comic strip around my location, because it really does take sort of going for a nice nature walk or seeing what the town's up to, talking to some of the people. All those things usually help come up with ideas for me. And also just I have a natural curiosity to find out what my characters might be doing as well. So I sort of dive into their world and all of that sort of gets turned around in the pot and comes out as a punchline, and the punchline is probably the trickiest bit.
How many do you do a week? Do you do half a dozen and one comes out well, or do you spend all your time working, crystallising that one idea?
I do. I have a sketchbook of lots of different ideas, and a lot of them are really bad, and some of them just don't suit the comic at all. But I have to get everything out and then go through all of them and see which ones are the best ones, and hope that I have enough that I can keep going.
How's the art work these days, Nathan? Are you there with your drawing board and your tea, or are you in the digital realm?
Well, I still have the tea. But yeah, we have, I have a graphics tablet, and I actually draw my work on animation software, which I've just used for many years, and I just got very used to. Yes.
Do you find that does the digital realm affect your creativity? Does it give you a more versatile palette, or does it limit your palette but make it easier to turn over ideas in a fashion that makes it nice and quick and easy for you to do in that creative process?
It's definitely faster and maybe funner to sketch up something on a piece of paper, but for a polished, finished copy of a comic strip, it's so good to use digital because of the colouring and the copy and paste and just all these tiny little things that I can use to make the job faster, but also just to make it look nicer.
Yeah. What do you do with a comic strip? Does Walpole Kids, do you take that to a bigger audience? Do you have other comic strips you're working on? Is this a career pursuit or is this a hobby? How does this work in your world, Nathan?
Everything's a hobby until it becomes a career.
Yeah.
And at the moment it is a hobby. But I have produced a comic book or a zine, which I've just released, and some stickers as well, actually. Based on, it includes all of the comic strips I created last year, so in 2020, and some artwork as well. Just compiled it all together and got it in the local stores here in Walpole, so people can go along and buy a book if they like the comic.
That is fantastic. And finally, Walpole people, have they been welcoming? Do they criticise you? Do they say, "Oh, you should do a comic strip about Jonesy in his coffee shop"? Because it's a small community there. I'd imagine everybody knows everybody.
Well, that's like one of the main things I've tried to avoid in the comic is putting in sort of business names.
Yeah, okay.
And real people. Although actually next week's we'll have a real person.
We'll have to look out for next week's.
Yeah.
All right.
I forgot the rest of your question. Oh yeah, they're local people. Yeah. So it's a mixed thing because it's hard to grasp what people think because you just send it out there and you might not necessarily get a response because it's just out there. But it goes out every week. Goes out to Albany as well, and I have got a few people saying they like it. Sometimes people run up to me in the chip shop and say, "Oh, I like this week's comic," and people are saying they like the book.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm getting some positive response. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Nathan Viney, for joining us this morning and adding a bit of your artistic magic to the world. It always makes it a better place. And I look forward to reading your comments, your comic strips in both the, what's the Walpole paper called there?
Walpole Weekly.
There we go.
You can read it online or just come down Walpole and have a nice day out here.
That's right. Or the Great Southern Weekly, it's in as well. Great work. Thank you, Nathan, for joining us this morning.
That's all right. Thanks for having me.
19 to 8, Saturday morning breakfast, ABC.
ABC Radio, keeping local conversations going.